This week on Africa Weekly, we focus on Cameroon, where fear reigns following a series of deadly attacks by Boko Haram jihadists. Then we head to South Africa's Kruger National Park, home to most of the world's rhinos, where dogs are now being deployed in a vicious anti-poaching war. And we travel to Ille Sainte Marie, off the eastern coast of Madagascar, where the arrival of humpback whales is cause for celebration. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. The first 2 weeks since Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza was re-elected for a third term in power have been far from stable. This week alone seeing a top general killed in a rocket attack, the attempted murder of a leading human rights activist, and reports of widespread violence in the capital under the cover of darkness. South Sudan's rival forces began peace talks on Thursday in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. The world's newest country has been locked in civil war for 19 months since President Salva Kiir accused his former deputy Riek Machar of planning a coup, setting off a cycle of retaliatory killings. Regional mediators have threatened to impose punitive measures if Kiir and Machar don't reach an agreement by August 17th to put an end to the conflict that has left tens of thousands dead. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi unveiled an expanded Suez Canal on Thursday in a lavish ceremony attended by several world leaders. Officials hope the new waterway will more than double Suez earnings from $5.3 billion at the end of 2015 to $13.2 billion in 2023, although some analysts are more skeptical over the targets. On Tuesday, Ivory Coast's President Alassane Ouattara handed 50 victims of the 2010-2011 political crisis and their relatives a cheque for €1,500 each, the beginning of the compensation process for a crisis that ripped the nation apart. 3,000 people were killed in the bloody 5-month standoff, following former President Laurent Gbagbo's refusal to concede defeat to Ouattara. On Thursday, top Kenyan athletes, including former world marathon record holders Wilson Kipsang and Teglalo Rup, completed a giant 840-kilometre walk for peace against ethnic violence. The 22-day trek, which saw communities along the route join the walk, took place through some of the hardest-hit areas, crossing the finish line in Kenya's Rift Valley, where over 300 people have been killed in clashes this year. And finally, the 18th anniversary of Nigeria's Afrobeat star Fela Kuti was marked by Kuti's son in a remembrance concert in the capital Lagos. The annual event brings together Fela Kuti fans in a celebration of song and dance, ensuring that his memory and music live on. In Cameroon, Boko Haram militants continue to strike beyond their strongholds in neighbouring Nigeria, but the West African country is fighting back with a political and military crackdown on the jihadists.
They've long wreaked havoc in Nigeria. Now Boko Haram militants are increasingly targeting Cameroon. Boko Haram kidnapped 135 people and killed at least 8 others last Wednesday after weeks of suicide attacks, shootings and abductions. But Cameroon is fighting back. The country's top army generals met their Chadian counterparts in the northern city of Maroua on Thursday. They announced an extra 2,000 soldiers to protect locals, and a beefed-up regional task force will go into action soon. Cameroon has also deported more than 2,000 Nigerians who were living in the country illegally as part of new security measures intended to flush out potential insurgents.
Nigeria and Cameroon share a long border. We must say that it's porous, but this is for the benefit of people who live there, and as such, therefore, we must develop security measures along the border by allowing people to live in peace as they used to do.
Even in the cities further south, security is being tightened. Last month, the full face veil was banned and residents are regularly subjected to security checks. But despite these efforts, the number of attacks is on the rise. Boko Haram has killed more than 800 people in Nigeria, Cameroon and Chad in just the last 2 months.
Ali has all the enthusiasm of a young recruit. Tough and smart, she knows how to follow a track for several kilometers through the bush and attack her enemies. She's a Belgian Malinois, a breed known for working with rescuers and military the world over. But here, she's part of South Africa's Kruger National Park canine unit, trained to sniff out and stop poachers. Her handler wishes to remain anonymous as he fears reprisals.
With the dog just catches the scent and the dog is very fast, especially when it's off the leash and the spore's kind of very fresh. You just go, you are fast, it's easy for you to catch poachers like that. And when they run away, the dog can still go and grab one still, you see.
When the team finds a rhino carcass, the dog is unleashed. More than 1,200 rhinos were killed in South Africa last year, 2/3 of them in this park. It was a record high that looks set to be broken again in 2015. The park can barely keep up, but the success of the canine brigade offers some small hope. Once caught, the poachers are sent to this magistrate's court inside the park. Kruger Park shares a long border with Mozambique, a country where many still live below the poverty line. Powerful gangs recruit poachers from these communities to infiltrate the park and feed the Asian demand for rhino horn powder. Most of the accused here are Mozambican, but even when caught, convictions are difficult to secure.
Since there are such a big amount of monies involved in rhino poaching, they usually get the best legal representation money can buy. They are entitled to ask time to consult with their clients. So it's a long process, a tedious process which takes time. And very often the defense is applying delaying tactics.
But successful convictions are possible. This man was caught with the help of a dog and has now been sentenced to 7 years. The poachers' techniques are becoming ever more sophisticated. But today, it's a small victory for the court and the canine brigade. Every year, humpback whales leave the frigid climate of Antarctica to breed here in the warm waters of Ille Sainte Marie. And this year, the residents of this small island off the coast of Madagascar welcome their arrival with the country's very first whale festival. It's a move they hope will not only revive a struggling tourist sector, but boost whale populations too.
The Whale Festival plays two essential roles. The first is to raise awareness about whales and about the marine environment in general. St. Marians love their whales, but there's a need to use this wonderful ambassador to spread our message.
Humpback whale numbers plummeted from 225,000 to 60,000 in just 1 century. The species is no longer endangered, but consumer markets for whale meat still exist, notably in Japan. After the festival, scientists and officials gathered to discuss ways of protecting the marine mammal, and Madagascar's Environment Minister pledged to preserve the island's natural heritage. Whale tourism generates about $1.2 billion each year globally. It holds massive potential for Madagascar, which is struggling with poor infrastructure and little political will.
Submarine could be a place, a scientific and conservation site of the world. So people will come here especially to enjoy the whales with all this infrastructure and more that will be coming. I need to tell you that to have whales in front of you or behind me as I have it now, this is very difficult to find in many countries.
Madagascar is one of the world's top whale watching sites alongside Hawaii and the Dominican Republic. Now, the country wants its whale route to be listed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, protecting these mammals for future generations.
On Saturday, Soweto's two main football teams, Kaiser Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, battled for the Carling Black Label Cup for an unusual derby, where the fans could choose the players on the field. Next week we go back to South Africa, this time to meet the innovators behind the country's first black-owned brewery, hoping to entice affluent black drinkers with Soweto Gold. And we do a spot of alternative shopping at Togo's Voodoo Markets, where incantations, skulls and dried animal skins are used by healers, sure to cure almost every ailment. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.